Hi there, it's Llarold, and today I'm going to be talking about patch 10.1, which I'm very excited about. As of the time that I'm recording this, patch 10.1 is just a week away. In terms of the content that's going to be available in patch 10.1, it's sort of a two-phase rollout. There will be a lot of stuff that'll be doable, playable, accessible from the moment the patch goes live, and there will be a lot of stuff that won't be available until the second week of the patch. And that's kind of what this video's focus is going to be about. Talking about what'll be available day 1, what'll be available day 8. And also looking at the stuff that has changed since we did our initial preview for patch 10.1 video. But mostly it's just gonna be about getting hyped up for the patch, because I think it's gonna be a big one. Alright, so let's start with the thing that's gonna be available from the very beginning, the new zone. The Zaralek Caverns are a new zone, and the way you get to them is pretty straightforward. You fly west from Valdrakken, there's a big hole in the ground now. You fly into the hole, there's sort of a little network of tunnels to get through, and then boom, it opens up into this gigantic cave that has a bunch of biomes in it. It's really reminiscent of Deepholm for me, as somebody who played in Cataclysm and before, yeah, I played since vanilla. I'm legally required to say it. It reminds me a lot of Cataclysm areas. It has some Dragonflight flavor, it has, a lot of architecture from Dragonflight, kind of looks like the Obsidian Citadel in the Waking Shores, kind of a lot of that architecture in some of the areas in the Zaralek Caverns, but ultimately, yeah, it's just a cool looking zone, full of rares, has new world bosses that probably won't be available until the second week of the patch. Lots of quest lines to do. Good stuff. Very excited to get in there and explore it. I have made a very specific choice to not spoil any of the quest lines in there or interact with the new rep, but I can say there is a new rep called the Loam Niffin. They're a bunch of mole people. I've been calling them the Loam Sniffin because they seem to do a lot of activities that involve their nose, sniffing for mushrooms or whatever. They do other activities as far as I've read, snail races, that sort of thing. The kind of thing you would expect from a bunch of cave-dwelling mole people. I like them, and I like their little underground city. I think it's all cute. Moving on to something that is really going to change the way that players interact with each other for the rest of the future of World of Warcraft, cross-faction guilds. Those will be in from day 1 of the patch, and the way they work is actually kind of simple. It was a little complicated in their initial explanation, but basically, Alliance guilds will be able to have Horde players join them, and Horde guilds will be able to have Alliance players join them. In terms of chatting in guild chat and pulling stuff out of the guild bank, using guild repairs, participating in guild achievements that are like not faction specific, like clearing dungeons together or raids together or whatever as a guild, this will all just kind of work seamlessly. There are some things where maybe there's like some potential for a little bit of jank, like I don't know how it'll work with guild rewards. If you're a Horde player in an Alliance guild and you go to the Horde guild reward vendor to try and buy like a guild banner, I don't know if you'll be able to buy one of those. Also don't know how like PvP achievements will work, if you're a Horde player in an Alliance guild and you're trying to help participate in like a kill 1,000 or 10,000 orcs or whatever as a guild achievement. Don't know if you'll be able to participate in that or if you'll count for credit when you die. It's unclear. I don't think it's really that big of a deal, and I think it's pretty cool that finally Alliance and Horde will be able to play together and participate in, guild chat, use the same guild bank instead of having to have 2 guilds set up. It also means that for Race to the World First, high-level rating, the Alliance and Horde separate Hall of Fames is going to be a thing of the past. I think that's great, and frankly, I've been excited about this for a long time. I've wanted to go Kultiran on my druid because I think they look really nice and their racials are amazing, and now I finally can without having to like join the Alliance guild and then not be able to talk to most of the people that are in my guild. So I'm very happy about that. In terms of other things that are dropping on May 2nd, the main ones are some cosmetic changes for Dark Iron Dwarves and Worgen and Nightborn. Just the addition of some more like hair color styles and eye color styles, and Worgen are finally going to get the ability to automatically shapeshift out of Worgen form when they leave combat, just like Drakthir are able to do with their Visage form. Worgen are going to get a Worgen version of that, and good for them. The new gear upgrade system is also going to be implemented on May 2nd. It's going to be basically a much better version of the Valor upgrade system. I'm probably going to do a whole video covering that topic, so I'll just kind of briefly go over it and say, like, there'll be a couple of currencies, like one that you generally get from all the content in the game, and then ones that are tiered based off of the difficulty of the content that you're doing. You know, like LFR stones will be a little different from normal raid stones, heroic raid stones, and mythic raid stones. Those are all be different from each other, and then it'll similarly be reflected in Mythic Plus. And I don't know if PvP is going to have any overlap with that. I think PvP's upgrade system will stay the same, but they're making it so that the Mythic Plus system that exists now for upgrading gear with Valor will function across gear throughout the whole game. You'll be able to, like, go, you see a world quest item that's really well itemized, but the item level is like pitifully low, you wouldn't want to use it. You can go do that world quest, and then if you have a piece of gear that's higher item level than that in that slot on that character, you can very cheaply upgrade it to a level where it would actually be useful. So the potential for gear from sources that would have historically been, you know, trash, worthless, could actually be useful now. I think that's pretty cool. There's also some quality of life stuff for alts, which is just really good. Again, I'll go into more detail, I think, on this subject in a video of its own. But suffice it to say, I think the new gear upgrade system is just a lot more all-encompassing version of the Mythic Plus gear upgrade system, and it's just way, way, way better. There are also some class changes landing on May 2nd, the most notable of which are, as I understand it, buffs to Shadow Priest and Devastation Evoker. I've been able to see the increase of damage to Devastation Evoker in some of our raid testing. That's definitely real. The Shadow Priest stuff, I'm not quite as sure about. I don't really play either of those classes, so I'm not like a super authority on that. What I can say I'm an authority on is tanks, and there basically hasn't been anything in the way of tank rebalancing or changing for patch 10.1. For the most part, I think this is fine. I think class balance for tanks is pretty good. There are a couple of outliers in each direction that I think could stand to be nerfed to Prop Alley and some buffs to Bear Druid, but other than that, I think that tanks are doing pretty well. There's one other change that I hadn't talked about yet on the channel. I had intended to make a video about it as soon as it came out, but then when I started looking at it, it just seemed more and more like a net neutral, and that is that Blizzard is once again doing the thing they did right before the launch of the expansion. They're nerfing healers. And the way that they're doing it is kind of weird. Instead of just nerfing healing by healers by 25%, they're increasing mob damage by 25%, they're increasing all player health by 25%, and they're increasing all non-healer healing by 25%. Like I said, initially thought I should make a video about this, talking about all the things that they missed, but I went through and looked and kind of made some comparisons, and for the most part, they really didn't miss that much. They even increased, for example, the passive that makes Brewmaster Monk take more healing. They increased that by about 25%, so that Brewmasters will basically still be in the exact same shape as they have been. All of this winds up being a net neutral for the most part. There are a couple of exceptions. One, things that scale with your health pool offensively just got a buff. Touch of Death, for example, got a buff. That's kind of the main one. The only other notable exception that I could really think of was after the Wildfire for Bear Druids, which frankly is kind of the most overpowered part of their whole toolkit. You know, this big AoE proc 150k, 200k heal that occurs fairly often. That didn't see any increase, so it basically got a 25% nerf, sorta. And I was thinking, you know, I saw some people say, like, why, the same thing they said at the start of the expansion, why is Blizzard buffing everything else except for healers by 25%, or increasing it by 25%, because they're increasing mob damage as well. So it's not a buff to tanks, it's not really a buff to Blood DK, even though it seemed like that initially. It's net neutral. Why do it this way? Why not just reduce healers healing by 25%? Certainly makes more sense to me in terms of keeping things simple. I think the reasoning is pretty straightforward. It's something they've talked about in the past. They don't want healers to, like, today they cast heal and it heals for 10,000, and then tomorrow they log in and they cast heal and it heals for 7,500. That would make healers depressed. I literally think it is that simple. I don't think it's anything more complicated than that. I think that the ability of the community to absorb the idea that, like, oh, I logged in yesterday with 500,000 health and now I have 600,000. Cool. That's kind of easier for people to deal with than logging in and just doing 25% less healing. Again, I don't really think that this will actually have much effect on game balance, but it is something to be mindful of. You are going to log in and do 25% more healing. If you're not a healer, you're going to have 25% more health. If you're not, well, regardless of what's going on. Basically, if you're not a healer, you are the same, and if you're a healer, you just got your healing nerfed again. That sucks. All right, now let's talk about the stuff that's coming in week 2 of patch 10.1. The most obvious things are going to be, hey, new raid. It launches, and it's going to be just like it was with the first season of Dragonflight, or the first raid tier of Dragonflight. All the difficulties are going to release at once: normal, heroic, mythic, and I don't know off the top of the dome what the LFR schedule is, but they'll do a good job of messaging that as well, and it'll probably be the same thing as usual, where it releases, every couple of weeks you get a new wing. The new Mythic Plus and PvP seasons will be releasing at that time as well, and I mostly want to focus on the Mythic Plus because I gotta say, even as somebody who never really cared that much for Mythic Plus, never really focuses on much other than raiding as the main reason to play this game. I play the game to raid, I do everything else to facilitate raiding at a high level. I like a lot of the cosmetic aspects of the game, pet battles, collecting mounts, titles, that kind of thing, but ultimately it's all in the service of raiding. I don't think that's going to be the case for me in Season 2 of Dragonflight. I'm still planning to raid at a high level. I'm not expecting anything to change on that front, but I'm actually looking forward to the Mythic Plus more. Blizzard has made substantial changes to the way that Mythic Plus is going to work in Season 2 of Dragonflight, and I want to go through those quickly right now, and then in a longer form in a video that I'll put out hopefully very soon. Let's start with the 8 dungeons that'll be the collection of dungeons you do in Season 2. First off, it's the 4 dungeons from Dragonflight that weren't Mythic Plus in Season 1, so Neltharis, Halls of Infusion, Brackenhide Hollow, and Uldaman, Legacy of Tyr. Then there will be 4 other dungeons taken from past expansions in WoW, and those are Neltharian's Lair from Legion, a personal favorite, Freehold from BFA, a favorite of literally everyone who did Mythic Plus in BFA, Underrot, also from BFA, and Vortex Pinnacle, which is coming all the way back from Cataclysm. Kind of a shocker, but actually a pretty good dungeon, and I'm hyped for all of this. Underrot, maybe the one stinker on the list, but it's alright, and in general, I'm pretty happy with this set of dungeons. Now let's talk about the seasonal affix for Season 2 of Mythic Plus in Dragonflight. There isn't one. Blizzard has done a full look over at affixes in Mythic Plus and kind of redesigned the way that the whole system works. Basically, instead of getting a new affix at level 4 and a new affix at level 7 and then getting a seasonal affix at level 10, they're making it so that you get one affix at level 7, one at level 14, and then that's it. At level 2, you still get the Tyrannical versus Fortified. That, unfortunately, is still a feature of the system, something that they feel like they want to build the whole system around. Personally, I don't really like it. I've never really liked Tyrannical weeks. I don't really love Fortified weeks either. I kind of would just prefer that all dungeons were a little harder on both fronts instead of having bosses that have, like, millions and millions of health for a 5-man group. They don't really have that many mechanics. I've never really found that particular aspect of Mythic Plus all that engaging. But that being said, I still think this is a significant improvement. The last couple of seasonal affixes, or specifically the first season of Dragonflight's seasonal affix, was pretty disruptive, pretty irritating, and it was in line with their design intent with affixes, which is that they're more of an inconvenience than they are a benefit. It definitely succeeded on that front, but that's annoying. I would rather there not be seasonal affixes than, seasonal affixes that are disruptive and stun you and wipe you when groups aren't coordinated. In general, I think that this season is going to be quite a bit easier because of this removal of the seasonal affix, and there's also quite a few more changes that are happening. The level 4 affix bucket, now the level 7 affix bucket, is basically unchanged. It's still Spiteful, Sanguine, Bursting, Bolstering, and Raging. That's mostly unchanged, although Raging has been nerfed. Raging no longer increases the mob's damage, it now just makes them immune to CCs when they're at the lower health value, but not immune to interrupts. This was something that was on the PTR for like a couple of hours. Blizzard got a bunch of really negative feedback and immediately changed it. Great job on that. Also, Bolstering will no longer increase mob health, just their damage, which is awesome. Great changes across the board there. Now we can move on to the level 14 affix bucket, previously the level 7 affix bucket, and that has gotten significantly changed. Say goodbye to Grievous, say goodbye to Explosive, and say goodbye to Quaking. Rest in piss, you garbage affixes. I hated you all. Grievous in particular is like just one that really, really rubbed me the wrong way because it's just, oh, you take damage, now you take more damage. It was never interesting, there was never any sort of counterplay, you just had to heal people more. Just lame. No thank you. That's all gone. And now they've added in 3 new affixes to take their place: Incorporeal, Afflicted, and Entangling. All of these affixes only work while you're in combat, and that's actually, unless I'm missing something, that's true of all of the affixes that are going to be in the game now. Like Quaking, which would hit you while you were out of combat. Very frustrating. The most irritating thing in the world to me, to be like 6 seconds into a res cast after a fight has ended, and then Quaking comes along and it's going to beat your interrupt your res cast, so you have to stop, wait for it to go off, then start resing again. The most annoying thing in the world. So all the affixes work while you're in combat only. Incorporeal causes ghostly beings to appear nearby, and they will start these very long casts. If they get them off, they reduce the whole group's damage and healing done, so the way that you deal with them is you just CC them or interrupt them. Just hit them with a leg sweep, hit them with a blinding light, hit them with, any sort of stun or whatever. That'll pretty much do it. So it's just like a CC check. I think that's pretty good. Afflicted is the next new affix, and similarly to Incorporeal, it's just sort of a mechanics check. It is a dispel check. A bunch of spirits will appear around, or I should say a small number of spirits will appear around, because in the initial implementation of all of these affixes, the spawn rates were way too high, and they've been gated and given like internal cooldowns and kind of caps on the number of guys that they'll spawn at a time. Again, really well done by Blizzard on responding to feedback and making these all a lot more manageable than they were in the first implementation. Essentially what you want to do is you either want to heal these guys back up to full, or just hit them with any sort of defensive dispel. So we're talking Poison Dispel, Curse Dispel, Disease Dispel, not Magic Dispel. I guess I lied on any kind, but yeah, one of those 3. And so that gives a lot of utility to classes like Druid being able to come in and decurse, Mage being able to decurse, Monk and Pally being able to remove poison and disease, Shaman being able to remove disease with disease removal totem. I think that exists now. Pretty good. It causes the spirit to despawn, and that's it. If you don't remove their afflictions in time, I think you have like 10 seconds or so, then you get hit with a negative status effect. You can also just brute force it and heal them up to full. That'll do the same thing, but that's quite a bit less efficient than dispelling, but it's an option. The third new affix is Entangling. It's pretty basic. It just summons a little entangling vine on the ground underneath you. It slows you by, it was 50% initially, I think it's been reduced to 30% now, and you have 10 seconds to run out of the little circle. That'll snap the vine and you're free, you're fine. If you don't break it in time, then it will stun you. But again, here's the thing that's nice. If you're a Pally, if you're a Monk, if you're any of those classes that has an effect like Blessing of Freedom or Tiger's Lust or Avatar for Warriors, Master's Call for Hunters, anything that removes slows or snares, that'll just pop this right off. You're good. You can just hit that, don't even have to move, totally fine. Great stuff. I think that this is another really good new affix. And again, I think in all 3 of these cases, these are replacing affixes that sucked, and they're way less irritating. I think that just in general, all of the affixes that are coming in the new season are going to be a lot less frustrating than the old ones. And when you combine that with the fact that they're nerfing two of the more difficult ones in the lower tier as well, Raging and Bolstering, and then they're just straight up not adding a seasonal affix, I think this is going to wind up creating a much, much easier Season 2 than we've probably ever had in Mythic Plus, certainly in the last couple of expansions. I think that's a good thing. That allows for the dungeons themselves to be the source of difficulty, where you're not playing the affixes all the time. Like, right now it's Explosive Week. I've kind of been cleaning up some dungeons that I missed on 20s on some of my characters and realizing like, oh man, I am not really playing the dungeons most of the time during Explosive Week. I'm just playing the explosives. That's very irritating. I'm very happy to see that go away. All right, finally, I want to close by talking about getting tier set in patch 10.1 and a little change that they've made that I just think works better than anything that they've done thus far. Blizzard is going to carry forward the Catalyst system, and despite all the negative feedback, they are going to make it sort of a 6-week unlock from the time, from May 9th when that raid and Mythic Plus season unlocks. It won't be available until 6 weeks have passed. That's not great, but they have done a couple of quality of life improvements for it. They're making it so that you don't have to do anything to get Catalyst charges. You don't have to spend any currency like you did in Shadowlands. You don't have to do a weekly quest that then gives you an account-wide unlock like you did in Season 1 of Dragonflight. You just literally let time pass, and that's how you get more charges. Each week you get another charge for the Catalyst on every character on your account, regardless of what their level is, up to a max of 6, and that's it. Again, just time passes, get charges, the end. But that's not all, because I think if that had been it, people would be mad, and rightly so. Blizzard has also added a new achievement. It's called Season 2 Master, at least that was the initial name for it in their first blue post. They haven't updated the name on it yet, as far as I've been able to tell. It probably won't be that. Anyway, here's how it works. If you clear Aberrus, the Shadowed Crucible on Heroic, like full clear the raid on Heroic, or you hit 2200 in Mythic Plus, which isn't that difficult, it's below the 2400 rating that was required to upgrade stuff to the maximum item level in Season 1, or 1800 rating in PvP, which I'm sure for PvPers is easy. For me, it might as well be, carrying a house by myself. Doing any of those will give you that achievement, and that achievement rewards you with a Draconic Mark of Mastery, which you can hand into a vendor for your choice of a heroic level tier set item. This is only a once per character reward, so you're not incentivized, and this is like a perfectly addressing an issue that I would have with it. You're not incentivized to clear the raid on heroic difficulty, hit 2200 in Mythic Plus, and do 1800 rating in PvP, so you can get 3 pieces of gear, and then do that on 6 different characters, and then just don't even bother sleeping during the first week of the new season. No, thankfully none of that is required. It's just, do one of those 3 things, and you get that guaranteed heroic raid tier piece of your choice. And it will be upgradable with crests and flight stones, the new upgrade system that's in the patch. So it's fully integrated into that system, and I think it'll all work really well. Just being able to guarantee the one piece is like good enough. Additionally, the final boss of Aberrus, the Shadowed Crucible, will drop an Omni token, basically, just one extra piece of tier that can be given to, whoever in the raid. It is only the one, so it's not like a guaranteed everybody gets a piece of tier, unless your guild's running 30 split raids, which some of the higher level guilds are probably going to be getting into that range. But still, the ability to be like, hey, we killed the final boss, our Shadow Priest has 3-piece tier, we can just guarantee that they're able to go buy the helm or pants or whatever it is that they want. I think that's pretty cool. And it definitely incentivizes continuing to kill the final boss of the raid well into the tier and well after Prog has finished for a lot of higher level guilds, which I think is nice, I like having gear on my alts, right? Who doesn't? I think this is a pretty good compromise on Blizzard's part, guaranteeing that basically every character who hits one of those, not moderately difficult, but not like impossible, insane milestones, is given a piece of tier of their choosing. I think that's pretty good. Really, that ability to deterministically say, I want gloves, that's where I need the tier. I'm very happy with that. And I'm very happy with this coming patch in general. I'm pretty excited. All right, I haven't said like and subscribe in a while. I haven't asked you to tell me what you're excited about in the patch. So both of those things, do them. All right, that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.